Man, did I even get enough footage for this? I think this one got kind of out of hand. Well, if I don't, I'm just gonna loop what I have because I'm too lazy to capture anymore. And this is what looting games do, don't they? They make you kill the same guys and do the same quests over and over again to get better stuff, maybe. So let's just pretend it's all thematic, alright? Okay, everyone, I'm kind of going to ramble a little bit about this one. I don't have a fixed script, so abandon all hope, everyone who expect a very cohesive script out of this. It just doesn't exist, and I'm just gonna say sort of what goes on my mind, like some of my other reviews. Okay, so let's begin. I don't usually talk about controversy, but my channel is still young, so who knows? If one day I'll talk about that, hopefully I won't become a bitter man, only ranting about the good old days. But let me start talking about Borderlands 3 and saying it is a game mired in controversy of sorts. It all depends on which side of the community you're from and whether you heard about the bad news or not. But basically, it all started with a big announcement that I'm sure most people who enjoyed the earlier games were happy about, especially considering Gearbox was kind of quiet for a while after Battleborn. Didn't work out very well for them, even after all the effort they put into it. It sure seemed like a developer, like as a developer, they might have been killed, but ultimately they were not, and people were happy FPS Diablo with guns was back. But soon after that, things kind of went to shit. Epic Game Store's exclusivity was announced in an era where the Epic Store was still controversial, though, well, it still is, and frankly, in my humble opinion, sorry if I disagree with you, but the Epic Game Store is still a shitty, fucking barren, counterintuitive wasteland of a storefront compared to Steam, which does have its sins, but we'll get to that in another video I hope I never have to make. Then there's Randy Pitchford being, well, Randy, for better or for worse. There's 2K sending the Turbo Mafia into a YouTuber's house because they didn't like he leaked details about the game, even though all he did was expose the leak they did themselves out of stupidity. And finally, Denuvo being even more hardcore than usual with a huge bloat of the game's executable and taking over 2 megabytes of upload constantly out of your bandwidth to communicate with their server, which caused some people to claim online was fucking garbage and unplayable because of, well, that. Or so they claim. Also, it was unoptimized garbage. The game or the novel made it unoptimized garbage. Though honestly, I don't know how deep this rabbit hole goes. Sources aren't completely accurate in the middle of this complete shitstorm, so yeah, it was bad. So I waited and eventually bought the base game only at a heavy discount at the Epic Game Store Christmas sale. Very worried about contributing to the Super Mafia. On one hand, and on the other hand, I was worried it would just simply be shit. Lucky for my wallet and sanity, it isn't all that bad. In fact, I'd say it's downright a great game. Yes, it is a complete improvement on the Borderlands formula. Borderlands 2 was an improvement on 1, but the pre-sequel just was kind of expansion on 2, so it didn't quite get its own things. And 3 finally streamlines a lot of things, it gets helpful for a lot of things, it gets interesting. Certain damage types that weren't clear or were just kind of unusable and bad are straight up revised, and everything is like a little bit more polished. The graphically speaking, it's much better. Every time you would expect something from the first game, like a pile of trash that is just a flat texture on that pretends to be a pile of trash. Well, here it is a detailed pile of trash. All the characters got little tinglies and bitties hanging from them, and they just look more better animated. So visually speaking, it also has a lot of variety. Borderlands 2 also had a lot of variety, even though it took place on Pandora. This one tries to go even further by taking place in completely different planets, and that's good. As for streamlining, you now get the option of going to a vending machine and just pressing a button to get all of your ammo. Honestly, that's the first and only thing that comes to mind, but I'm sure I can think of other examples before the end of this review. If I don't, just assume that if you had a problem that was related to streamlining in the previous games, it doesn't exist anymore in this one, and that's great because it leaves you more time to get to the meat of the thing, which is the looting and the shooting and the getting new gear and the upgrading your character. Oh yes, and finally they expanded the character skills tree, because in the previous one you were kind of like, you just get one action skill and that's it. In this one, every character gets more than one action skill, and you can choose which one you are going to use. Usually, I'm not sure because I didn't play with all the characters. I played mostly with Mose, but Mose, it's a character that basically gets a giant mech thing that you can summon sometimes, and it has 2 weapons, and you can choose 2 weapons out of the 3 weapons, because in case you didn't know, there are 3 skill trees in every Borderlands games, in case you are new here. In case you're new here, you're probably completely confused about everything I'm speaking so far. Not completely, but you can probably guess some of the things so you can keep following what I'm saying. But yeah, this is mostly going to be a review from the perspective of a person who played 1 when it was released, who played 2 when it was released, who played pre-sequel eventually, and now played 3. So yeah, a lot of improvement. So basically, Mose, she gets a giant bear mech, and she gets 2 guns, and you can choose 2 guns. And as you go through the skill tree, you unlock even more specialty guns that you can pick. And when you summon the mech, you get basically access to 2 guns. So yeah, the skill system is no more like you get 1 action skill and a bunch of passives or stuff that might help with this action skill, which means every character's build feels much more unique compared to the other Borderlands games. It's not like Diablo, it's not like what I want out of a first-person looting shooter, because if I was going to be completely crazy, I would just have like a bunch of skills, just like Diablo, just like Torchlight and other games of the type. I would just have like 9 skills tied to your keyboard. But yeah, it's not that. They probably didn't want to overcomplicate things and probably still wanted it to be playable with a controller, which, perfectly interesting, fine decision to do. But anyway, back on track. So basically the characters are more fun now to build into different things, though eventually people were just going to follow the meta, obviously. And the locations and the level design is also top tier. You get a lot of different places. You get wide open areas, you get closed narrow areas, you get areas with a lot of verticality, and so it's not just aesthetically pleasant, the level design is also very good. And of course, guns. The guns are great, the makers of the guns are great, and they add a lot of personality to the game and the world and the way it works. And of course, you are going to be here mostly for the guns, since you're going to be doing the shooting a lot. You are going to be talking a lot, though there is a lot of cutscene and hanging around and talking, more than I expected, but you are going to expend 80 to 85 to 90% of your time shooting at things. Constantly shooting and activating your skills and shooting some more. And when you think you're not going to shoot, you're going to shoot some more. There are a few little puzzles, but they are basically non-existent or incredibly simple, from what I remember. Yeah, it's mostly shooting, it's mostly running and shooting. Probably so they didn't want to overcomplicate it, because you can play it on co-op, which is a big part of this game, which is a big part of every Borderlands, the co-op option, and they didn't want you to be stuck too long with your friend in a puzzle. It's more of a run and shoot game. And speaking of looting and shooting with friends, I think that I'm sure is going to be controversial are which weapon brands are your favorites. Because in case you're new to Borderlands, the weapons are separated into brands. I don't know if I mentioned this yet. And they already had their little quirks in the previous games, but in this one, oh boy, they are like everything else that was polished. The quirks are even quirkier. They are even deeper, and they are even more fun and interesting to engage with. especially since this time around every weapon has an alternate fire. This is something that affected the other weapons in Borderlands, since sometimes you could, for example, get a weapon that has a certain elemental effect, only to be like, oh well, I don't want to use this weapon too much because the elemental effect is not one of the main effects that I wanted to use. But this time, Maliwan, the maker of the weapons that usually have elemental effects, have an alternate fire where you can switch between elemental effects. So yeah, you can end up with, depending on your loadout, you can end up carrying all of the elemental effects in the game, even though you don't have enough slots for that, simply because of alternate fire. And speaking of Maliwan, I just want to go in a little side rant here and say that their shotguns are absolutely fucking horrible. Because Maliwan guns are not just elemental, in case you didn't know, they take a little time to charge up. And Maliwan shotguns take some time to charge up. And then they basically eat the entire ammunition and you have to reload the entire shotgun for a shot that is low as hell to charge. So it basically sometimes feel like a worse rocket launcher. And it's great that I think Maliwan is complete fucking garbage, in shotgun at least. It shows how the game has a lot of different brands, these brands and these types of ways they work, which, you know, I might hate it, but other players might like it. And the brands not only add personality to the setting, they aid the player in immediately finding out what might feel right. Because unlike some RPGs, ARPGs, where you have skills and stuff and the gear only affects you passively, just changes your stats, Borderlands, you are constantly using them in an FPS setting. So it's not just about what has the bigger number, it's about what feels right to you. What gimmicks you like. What kind of stuff you aim for. Do you aim for pure DPS or do you like aiming for weak spots with elemental damage? You know? And one of my favorite weapons are Atlas assault rifles because they come with this little disc you can shoot at enemies. And after they grab the enemy, basically, you can, every single shot you fire afterwards tracks the enemy, sort of like heat-seeking shots. And that meant whenever I found a really, really good Atlas weapon, assault rifle, I was really happy because they all had this little thing. And Tediore is one of my favorite companies. Hey, so I'm gonna tell them about later in a more interesting context. But first I want to talk about the story. No game is perfect, and I've been speaking a lot good things about this game to the point you might be wondering, oh wow, all the criticism and all the worry was for nothing. But unfortunately, sometimes I tend to drag from the underworld this controversial topic, which is gameplay the most important thing to a game? And if so, if the gameplay is good, does nothing else matter? Is everything else window dressing? Well, I'm afraid to say, the story in this game is so fucking horrible. Not through the entire game, but the beginning in particular, I would find it to be so fucking horrible. The characters were so mishandled. There's so much wasted opportunity and potential in the story that went completely out of the window. Entire characters that did basically nothing, some which didn't even show up, even though characters closely related to them showed up. And the jokes were particularly bad. It's a bad story. It's a bad story that almost made me drop the game at the beginning, even though the gameplay is absolutely fantastic. And the reason for that is I'm not going to be the first person to analyze Borderlands humor, and I'm not going to be the last person, and this is going to be an extremely hot take. Eat it with caution. Take it with caution. But what I personally think is that Borderlands 3 in particular, but Borderlands as a whole, they like to do rapid fire humor, which is basically let's throw as many jokes as fast as possible. Which might work. It usually works with me, because even if I don't like some of the jokes, I like some of the others, and they try firing in all directions, so they don't hit anything very well, but they have something for everyone. Except in this case, the jokes always seems to go for too long. They drag on for too long. So whenever most of the jokes are terrible, and I want to claw my ears out, I want to just shoot myself, so I don't have to hear them anymore. But even when I find a joke that is funny, they just drag it through the ground. They drag it through the mud. For so long, the joke that was funny becomes unfunny. And not every joke's like that. And I'm sure some people are going to disagree and they're going to say, no, Borderlands 3's jokes are good because of that. Or Borderlands 3's jokes are not good, but not because of that reason. And I welcome that commentary. I'm just so confused with how bad the writing of this game is that I'm trying at any point to figure out what exactly went wrong here, and that is my personal theory. But on the other side of that, let me go back to the Tediore weapons. Because you see, close to the end of the game, Mose, the character I was talking about that I played as, she's a soldier, and one of her skills, I went for her tree that is focused on shooting as much things as fast as possible, basically some machine guns and assault rifles and stuff. And she got a skill that regenerated ammunition on the gun you're currently using. And as I reached the end of the game, I got a legendary Tediore shotgun that homed in on the enemies, which is one of my favorite types of Tediore. I didn't really like the guns with legs out that much. Sorry, guns with legs fans. They're not that powerful. But basically, I got this Tediore shotgun. And the fire rate of it was slower than the regeneration. So I could shoot it forever. The ammunition never ended, no matter how fast I shot. No matter if I kept pressing the button again. It simply would just regenerate real quick. And Tediore shotguns, for those who are not familiar, or Tediore weapons, you can throw them and they have different effects. You don't reload. They are so cheap to make. They just teleport, they just destruct a new one, which is the word they use, on your hand, so you just throw them away. But it can do many things, like explode, or in this case, act as a heat-seeking missile for the enemy, and the more ammunition you have on your clip, I'm sorry if I used the wrong word, but the more ammunition you have on your magazine or your clip, as you throw them, the more damage they do, and mine was constantly full to the point where I could barely use the reload. So basically, I got a shotgun that I could just use infinitely to shoot everyone in the face whenever I wanted, and if an enemy turned out to be too powerful, I could just shoot it constantly until I could finally reload it, which was just for a small window of time, and then throw it, and it would do a severe amount of damage. So essentially, I had a shotgun, rocket launcher, all in one. Thanks to this specific Tediore shotgun, combining extremely well with my character build. And that's a cute little story. It's supposed to be a cute little story. It's supposed to be a good story. Because this is the thing. This is the thing Borderlands does that no other game does. I tried The Division, it was boring as hell. I tried Destiny 2, it was boring as hell. Borderlands is the only looter shooter out there that really goes all out, not only on aesthetics, but on trying to do cool things with all of the guns, crazy things. And this experience I had with Tediore, with this Tediore shotgun, with this build that felt so right and made me so happy at the moment, is something only Borderlands can give me. So even if the story was completely garbage, you know what? I'm gonna recommend this game. It might even... I can't say if you should begin on this game if you want to play all of the games, because this one does so much streamlining and make things so simple and easy on points that they shouldn't be complex. They instead give you time for you to analyze the guns you find and, see if they should be part of your build and part of your lineup of your gear. Basically letting you focus on the important parts of choice making, that going back to the other Borderlands is going to feel like shit. Oh, and also a little complaint I have is about common type guns, because except for the very, 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 very first level of the game, they're just completely useless. I never used anything less than an uncommon gun. The green ones, I think they are uncommon, they're called. God, I can't believe I don't even remember what they're called, even though I played this game for 30 hours. Yes, it's a meaty campaign, and it has even more side quests that I haven't completed yet. So yeah, I played this game for 30 hours, and every gun that doesn't have a special color is just completely useless and only able to sell them. It's just shop folder, basically. Fodder, sorry. And I should probably do another video about that. I should probably study how other games I like did it better and let me use both rare, uncommon, legendaries, and common items as I went through the games. Because this is an interesting topic to cover when related to RPGs. And I also want to say this game has better shooting than The Outer Worlds, and I'm going to recommend it over The Outer Worlds, unfortunately, even though I thought The Outer Worlds was really good. Sorry, Outer Worlds, you just needed to get better shooting, and I'm comparing them because everyone knows Borderlands, Diablo is an RPG, and Borderlands is Diablos with gun in first person, so let's not lie to ourselves. And just shove it in there. Yeah, it has extremely satisfying shooting and an extremely long meaty campaign, which can be played in co-op, even though I played alone, because I have no friends, because fuck you. But yeah, enough about ranting. That is the little story I wanted to tell you. This is what I wanted to say about the game. The story is complete garbage, don't expect anything out of it, not even funny jokes. But the gameplay is one of the best, it is the best looter shooter I've ever played. And Borderlands is going to continue to be king of the genre for a while by the looks of it. Just please, for the love of God, Gearbox, just find better writers. Just find. I know you don't have everyone coming back for this one from the previous games, but not even the previous games made me cringe this much. And the previous games had that Diamond Horse thing, which some people liked, but I thought was extremely not as funny as people make it out to be. Just do something. Just get better writers, please. But instead of just leaving the video on that note, I want to address another thing real quick down here at the ending. I don't know if it is because I bought it quite some time after launch, but with all of the update patches applied and everything, the game actually runs buttery smooth. There are some FPS drops on the video, but that's just my rig's fault. I'm gonna see if I can upgrade it in the future, don't worry about that. So if you're worried about optimization, this is my final message before I end this video. It actually runs quite well. See you guys next time.